Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary, Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. And this show, ladies and gentlemen, keeps changing the game. We had debuts, we had storyline progression, we had amazing matches. I mean, you know, to me, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Very much looking forward to where certain stories will progress, especially how this episode concluded. Lucha Underground just continues to grab my attention. Ashton, what do you think of it?
I loved this episode, and it's one of those things where, like, even some of the minor complaints that I would have about any other show that does some of the stuff that Lucha Underground does, Lucha Underground has reason for it, so I can't even complain about it.
Right. I love it, man. I love that there seems to be no wasted motion, so to speak, with this brand. And, you know, it's not often that so many stories kind of intrigue me at once. Because here's the thing, right? With WWE, there may be only like one or two stories that I'm really intrigued about the payoff. Lucha Underground's got so much going on, like, I can't wait to see the resolution for all of it. The two biggest stories now being Catrina's little tryst, if you want to call it, with Fenix, and Matanza, you know, the prisoner in the cage. So, you know, it really says a lot about a brand when I'm actually interested in the resolution of multiple stories rather than just one or two, like, main ones.
Yeah.
And Pentagon's servitude, like who's his man, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, with that said, do you have anything else you want to say about this episode before we get into it?
Get into the first segment, brother.
Heat of the night! And I don't have any heats of the night tonight. This show, again, even if there were, like, any nitpicks, I can't even think of that. This show just does so well, and they do it with a purpose, so I've got no complaints tonight.
I actually wanted to use this segment to talk about something. You know how a couple seconds ago I said about how even if I did complain about something, they have reason for it, that kind of thing?
Yes.
I wanted to use this segment to sort of talk about something that I would complain about in any other promotion, but I don't feel like it's fair for me to complain about it in Lucha Underground.
Fair enough. Let's hear it.
The suicide dives.
Ah.
Because on NXT TakeOver Our Evolution, the biggest problem that I had with that show was the excessive use of suicide dives. They had one, I think maybe even two, in all but one match on that card. I think that by the end of the night, there ended up being like 5 or 6 of them throughout the night. And to me, when you do them that often, it makes it significantly less special when it happens. But for Lucha Underground, they do it a lot too, and it gets a little bit repetitive sometimes. But it's Lucha Libre, and that's just part of the Lucha Libre style. So I can't even complain about it, because that's like me saying, your style is wrong, you should change it, when that's a style that they've had for decades.
That is very true, and I mean, that's an integral part of the brand's identity, you know, is the Lucha Libre style, so I totally see where you're coming from.
It's in the freaking name of the brand, Lucha Underground.
Exactly, so, you know, see, they've got coverage.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to point out or discuss in this section?
Absolutely. I really just wanted to kind of get that out of the way, because, like, I feel like we are universally praising this show, and that's just a really good example of why I personally don't find anything wrong with the show, because, like, even something as small as that I would say is wrong about any other show, there's a reason for it to be happening.
Exactly. So I guess with that said, if you have nothing else you want to go over, we can get right into our Lucha Underground review. And I love how we open this show, because we get our usual opening credits, obviously.
Yep.
But then we get our cinematic open, which, by the way, that's another thing I loved about this show very quickly. I think they really took advantage of their cinematic techniques in this episode. I love the stuff they did with it.
You know, it's so funny that I just pointed out that the word lucha is in the title of the brand, because the other half of the title, Underground, I feel they really did a great job of highlighting that this is an underground show in this show.
Oh yeah.
Between like the dark, gloomy backstage area and the fact that the guys are walking around in their like random cages and hallways just around, it's just such a great atmosphere for backstage segments. And I really just huge props to Robert Rodriguez for the production on that, man.
I know, right? Like, I want to get on with the show, obviously, but to your point, like, the production value of this show, it's got such a different look from anything I've seen. And, like, I'm even saying, like, because I'll go back and I'll watch old school ECW or WCW, like no other promotion that I've personally witnessed has the production that this show does. It's really fascinating.
It is.
Because it makes you want to know more about the world. And we've likened it to Mortal Kombat so many times, it's ridiculous. But speaking of which, I guess you would say that Dario Cueto is kind of like Shao Kahn because he oversees the realm.
And dude, this is another thing that I freaking love about this show.
Yeah.
Is that it's not something that they necessarily do every week that I've noticed, but so often they start a week the same way that they finished off the previous week. Last week, the last thing that we saw was Alberto El Patron walking into Dario Cueto's office and making his presence known. And this week, that's exactly what we started with. I love the sense of continuity between episodes.
I completely agree with you on that. I really, as somebody who's taken a TV media course, I realize how important continuity is, and Lucha Underground just gets it on the nose. So Dario is backstage with Alberto El Patron, and he says he's glad he's here in Lucha Underground. And he says, you know, your wealth, what you're about, your cars, I really like that. And then I like this, Ashton, because Alberto El Patron responds and he says, yes, and I like your key. What does it unlock? Now, Dario doesn't answer him, but I love how they keep that story fresh in the people's minds, even in the most indirect of ways.
Yeah, because that key hasn't really been brought up really in the last month or so.
Yeah, not the key in particular, because now the big story is just who the prisoner actually is and Angela Fong's hunt for him, Matanza. So I'm thinking Cueto may use that key when he's in something so deep that he knows he can't get out of it, because he is just that kind of scumbag kind of promoter, and, you know, that may be his way out. But I love how he just kind of looks down, it doesn't even make contact with Patron, and refuses to answer him, and he just goes on to business, you know, just moves from topic to topic. He asked him what Alberto El Patron wanted. He said he needed to get something off his chest, and then Cueto says, well, you know, here we don't really talk. You know, this temple requires blood, pretty much. And Patron said, look, you give me this, I promise you, the next time I'm in your office, it will be asking for blood. So I really like this here. This is a nice cinematic open. It immediately garners interest in Patron. And Cueto just continues to be an interesting character, you know, being so guarded with that key and everything else. So Good job here.
Dario Cueto has found himself as one of the most interesting characters on the show, and he's not even an in-ring guy.
Exactly, and I think, you know, any promotion to be a success, you know, needs that kind of character, whether it's in a managerial capacity or in a more political capacity, like the promoter, general manager, whatever. And they've certainly got that with Cueto. I love it.
Absolutely. Up next, we got a bit of a welcome from Matt Stryker and Vampiro to the show. And we were told by Matt Stryker that Alberto El Patron was going to have an open mic tonight. He's going to air some grievances, I think is what he said. For those of you that aren't aware, Alberto El Patron is basically Alberto the Boss.
Yeah, love that. I think it fits perfectly with the stuff that he did in the past, and, you know, it's kind of keeping that same vibe going forward, except, you know, considering where he is, presumably as a babyface, and especially, So,
but
stuff.
Hey, at this point, we kick right off into our first match of the night. Argenis in the ring versus Fenix, and man, these guys are so ridiculous, especially Fenix. I mean, I appreciate Argenis, and he's got. I think what really makes Argenis special is that he's got that power game that most of the other luchadors don't bring, where, like, he can lift guys up and slam them down and, like, power bombs and stuff like that. Like, I'm telling you, he reminds me so much of Hunico. It's crazy. Which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny that I say that, because Hunico replaced Sin Cara on WWE, but Sin Cara, the original Sin Cara, is Argenis' brother.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yep.
As far as this match goes, I thought this was a very fun opener.
Yep.
They did a lot of crazy stuff here. Fenix at one point hit like a jump from one rope and then a corkscrew off those ropes, kind of crossbody on her hand.
Ridiculous. I'm telling you, man. I think that we have our first ever pair of clones in the wrestling business because Fenix and Kalisto are the exact same person, and I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, I'm convinced of it as well, man. Anybody can say what they want, but I mean, Fenix's form is just perfection.
Their masks are even similar. They both have that cool spiky headdress at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, then at one point, Argenis super kicked Fenix off of a springboard. That was a really cool counter. And then we see, though, that Catrina's kind of walking into the ring, so clearly she wants a closer seat to the action. But these two guys are still killing each other. Argenis hit a hurricane run off the top rope. Then he gets a standing moonsault. And then we see kind of like this, I think it was by Argenis, where he kind of like picked Fenix up and gets like this electric chair. Not necessarily like a powerbomb, but kind of like just a hard drop looking thing. And that looked vicious, but that only got a 2 count. And then finally, to end the matchup, Argenis is actually going for a tombstone pile driver. But then Fenix got his pile driver that we've seen.
Which is basically like the Rikishi driver.
Yeah. I think they call it like a thunder driver, something thunder driver. But, yeah, Fenix does get the win off of that. And then Catrina crawls in the ring, never breaking eye contact with Fenix. He's weirded the hell out, like what the hell's going on?
I love the mannerisms here from Fenix, the body language, the way he just kind of backs up without even standing up.
Right.
Love that, man.
And then she mounts Argenis and gives him the kiss of death, the licking of the side of the face, which you know she's only done with Mil Muertes up until this point. So again, I mean, does she want to bring Fenix into the inner circle? Is she leaving Mil Muertes? Because, I mean, that's not the last we'd see of Catrina, but we'll get to that in a second because I want to know if you have anything you want to say about this match. But yeah, just very intriguing stuff, man.
I like this match. It did feel a little bit like filler because, like, these guys don't really have anything to do now. It's like Fenix just kind of got past the Mil Muertes angle, and so now he's kind of trying to figure out what to do, and Argenis is the guy that kind of just debuted a month ago, and he hasn't really been given any kind of story. The one thing I do love, though, is everything that they did with Catrina here. Like, honestly, and this is me being completely objective, or not objective, completely subjective in this specific case.
Right.
When she was on NXT, back in the day, when she was Maxine, I thought that she was never going to amount to anything. And this was Catrina that we're talking about. I thought that she had like this weird diction when she spoke, and she has like a weird accent that's difficult to kind of grasp, and I just didn't see anything in her. She put on one of the worst matches in NXT history with, I think it was Caitlyn, and like I didn't see anything out of her, and now she's doing this, and she's just oozing sex appeal, and she's got these great facial expressions, and she's a shockingly good actor. I don't know if she went out of her way to get better, or if the WWE just wasn't letting her show her real personality when she was in NXT. But whatever it was, she's been phenomenal on Lucha Underground.
Completely agree. And you know what? I think this is a case in point, dude. Now, we haven't seen her in ring since then, so I'm not trying to make a judgment there. But I do think this is a case in point that, you know, not everybody, of course, has to be an in-ring competitor. And sometimes the really great ones can exude personality and make something of another role, because she's been nothing but a valet at this point. But she's definitely one of the more intriguing characters we have on a brand. Let me say that again. This is a valet, and she's one of the more intriguing characters we have on this show, in my opinion. It's unbelievable, and kudos to her. I'm very proud of her and happy for her for this success. So, with that said, you know, we go, I guess we get a short video package of Alberto El Patron entering the arena. But then after that, we get the follow-up with Catrina that I was kind of alluding to earlier, and Mil Muertes meets her. And to Ashton's point that he said at the beginning of the show, we get the dark kind of lighting, and it seems like they literally are underground somewhere, so great cinematic effect here. And she says that the power of 1,000 lives was too much for Mil Muertes. She starts to say, you need to, and then he grabs her by the throat. Starts gently, but then it seems to get more aggressive.
He literally lifts her off her feet by the throat.
But you know what I love about this? To go back to the praise we were giving Catrina just a few seconds prior, she keeps a totally calm and collected face.
Yeah.
Doesn't let it break, doesn't show any fear, as if to, I think she knows, and Vampiro, to his credit on commentary, he says how dangerous she is. She's a Black Widow, he calls her. She's definitely in control here. And that face, even though he was the one exerting his will and exerting the Force, she never lost power, I think, in that dynamic, and that's a very interesting thing.
How crazy is that, though? I mean, I agree with you, and that's why I'm saying, though, just how crazy is that's a thing.
Exactly. As soon as he lifts her off her feet, he gets real close and he screams that he needs nothing.
I love that, dude. He's... And this is another example where you don't need to have a guy go out into the ring or be backstage and cut a 30-second promo to get over. He said 3 words, and it was more meaningful than anything that Curtis Axel has said in the last month.
Isn't this the first time that Muertes has spoken as well?
Yes!
This is such a big moment for him, and I think I was even a little taken aback that he responded to her verbally at all. But then it gets even better. And this is no disrespect to Chavo, but he's so good in this role when he's just kind of excuse my language, but he's the bottom bitch to everybody else.
Yep.
Because Muertes runs into him backstage. Chavo's kind of eyeing him. It's almost like they're playing a game of chicken, is he going to let me pass? Please let me pass. Is he going to let me pass? Tries to pass. Nope, he's not going to let you pass.
No, see, this is the beautiful thing, though. Chavo was the aggressor here. I don't know if you noticed this or not. Chavo had a little stare down with Mill, but then he turned around like he was going to walk away. But then he faked him out, and he turned back around and went to punch Mil Muertes in the face, and Mil grabbed him by the throat and caught his fist that he was throwing by the wrist, and slammed him up against the wall, and said something about how next week he was going to pay his debt.
Oh, way to pull a Josh Matthews, Chavo. That was so good.
He's such a jobber.
And but let me ask you something, because I will admit, Ashton, because you and I know we love Lucha Underground to death, but when we feel like there's something wrong, we always want to air it out. I just want you to recap for me. Did Chavo and Blue Demon Jr. ever have their blow-off? Because I'm kind of wondering.
Well, they didn't have a blow-off match, but Blue Demon Jr. got his revenge by cracking Chavo over the head with the chair.
Okay, because you know what? Maybe I was just expecting an actual blow-off match, and I felt okay, well, this angle has to continue, right? But I guess maybe not. I guess that was a resolution. In which case, you know what? I'm cool with it. I'm just kind of wondering what happened to Blue Demon Jr. Because I was Johnny Mundo's been gone, but Blue Demon Jr. I can't even remember the last time we saw him. So I just wanted to mention that very quickly. But yeah, Muerte saying, next week you're gonna pay your debt, and
I think Blue Demon Jr.'s career is kind of winding down. He's an older guy.
Yeah, you know what? That makes sense.
I feel like he was just kind of there at first to sort of establish the place as legitimate, because he's the king. He is to Mexico what frickin' I don't want to go as far as to say Hulk Hogan, but he is on that level in Mexico.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost 50 years old, too.
Yeah, you know what? Then it's perfectly understandable. That's on me. I just wanted some clarity with that, because I was a bit confused.
And it's crazy, too, because, as recently as, I want to say, 2012? 11, maybe? He was the NWA World Champion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Very nice.
I'm going to look that up right now, actually, to see when it was that he was the NWA champ. Right here. 2008, actually. So it was a little bit longer ago than I thought.
Yeah, man, definitely. So
but he held it for over a year. He held it for 500 plus days.
Wow.
So he is a big, huge deal. And I definitely think that the main reason they brought him in was to sort of give the promotion that air of legitimacy. And be this isn't just some random Mexico-based indie. This is AAA America.
Right, yeah. So thank you very much for clearing that up for me, because there really was confusion there. But you know what? If this is what Chavo's doing now, I can get into it. So Mil Muertes is coming for Blood next week. I'm looking forward to it. But we go from that, and again, I've really been emphasizing that just the cinematics. I love this that we're about to talk about. Because it's Big Ryck coming for vengeance, and I love the whole setup because he's in a confessional, and he says, forgive me, Father, I don't think he says because I have sinned, but he says because I am going to sin, or I'm about to sin, because he knows what's on his mind.
Dude, can I just say,
Yeah.
I love that Big Ryck as a character is basically the fusion of two different Samuel L. Jackson characters.
I know, right?
He is literally Jules Winfield meets Nick, the guy from S.H.I.E.L.D.
Nick Storm, was it Storm?
No, Nick Fury.
Nick Fury. Fury, that's what it is.
He's those two guys put together.
Oh, man, that's a soundbite for the archives.
Jules Winfield meets Nick Fury, and that's what you get and obviously in the body of, like, I mean, hell, if you want to stick with the Pulp Fiction references, the Ving Rhames, the guy that played Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah, and let me just say very quickly before we get into the meat of this segment, I cannot commend Lucha Underground enough for how they have used Big Ryck, because in a way I feel like WWE only started to get it right, but only when it was a little bit too late, and then they turned him face and it went back to being a disaster. This is the kind of character I feel like he should have always been, and I feel like Lucha Underground just has their finger on the pulse of that, and they've done such great work accentuating all the positives that a guy like Big Ryck brings to the table. And this was great stuff. He's in the confessional, and he says that, I'm sorry for what I have done, but they show the highlights. And what I'm about to do, because they show the highlights of him getting beat down, and he said that he would take revenge on them for what they have done. And, he said, they got too big, their bridges, I fed them, I protected them, and they do this to me. And he said, I'm gonna take what's mine. I'm gonna have their blood on my hands. And then the priest said that he was forgiven. And then, Big Ryck said, thank you, Father. But even God once said, vengeance is mine. And then you see the face of Big Ryck with the eye patch.
Which is over his right eye. For some reason, I went into this thinking that he was going to have it over his left eye, but still, amazing.
This whole thing was just from the production value to the actual promo itself. It actually almost gave me goosebumps. I think this is the most interested I've ever been just in Big Ryck as a performer throughout the totality of his career. This is great stuff. Just really good.
Yeah, and hey, let's not take anything away from the dude. I don't want to call him Ezekiel Jackson because that's not his real name, but the performer here. He sold this so well. And yeah, I mean, you can give all the credit in the world to the atmosphere and the lighting, and all that stuff is so amazing and on point, but none of it would work if your performer didn't have the ability to cut a promo, and that's what this dude did very, very well tonight.
Oh, his delivery was spot on here. I love how even like as he's reminiscing about the beatdown and everything, he actually smokes a cigar in the confessional.
Yeah, he's basically gone from being one of the top two heels in the company to a guy who's going to end up being a total badass, pure babyface.
Dude, if Lucha Underground does this right, which I have the complete confidence that they will, and he comes back and he is that badass and just destroyer, I guarantee you the Temple is going to embrace him as one of their top heroes, probably in a matter of weeks.
Later on in the night, we already know freaking Pentagon Jr. is a heel killer, and the crowd loves him.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something I can't wait to talk about either, but you're absolutely right. Given that precedent, I mean, Big Ryck, I think there's no other outcome but for him to be embraced.
And I think it really just comes down to offering something different, because it's something cool, in my opinion, that they've kind of established that the norm for Lucha Underground is matadors. I'm an idiot. Luchadors, guys that are smaller, that fly around, that rather than exerting their will on people, they use other people's momentum against them and kind of win with speed and technique rather than winning with power. So when you get a guy like Pentagon Jr. who comes in and he's freaking power bombing people and using these ridiculously painful looking submission holds and just dominating, it's different, so it makes him stand out and the crowd responds to that. And now Big Ryck is going to show up and he's not going to be using submission holds. He's just going to be punching and kicking and throwing people around like ragdolls. And that's something that's also different. And it's different in a way that's also different from what Pentagon Jr. does. So I definitely think that he's going to stand out, and I think the crowd's going to respond for sure.
Completely agree. So with that said, let us move on.
Up next, we had the Son of Havoc versus Johnny Mundo match. Havoc actually got on the mic and said something about how Dario has finally given him some real competition, and then he's dedicating his win tonight to the baddest bitch in the building and the love of his life, Ivelisse. And then Johnny Mundo came out, and this was by far the match of the night. There were only 3 matches tonight, so it doesn't have a ton of competition, but none of the matches that we had tonight were bad, but this was just so freaking good.
Ashton, I hope you don't mind, man, but I gotta say, when you and I were watching Lucha Underground last night, because everybody knows that it was a weird circumstance given NXT TakeOver Rival and our live reactions and everything, you and I really wish we could have gotten this recorded because I loved it. We had a great discussion on Son of Havoc, and I don't want to, revisit that entire discussion, but I thought we'd give some bullet points because I find it fascinating in the best possible way how this crowd has embraced Son of Havoc for one, and two, how he is this guy that he's on this losing streak, but he has these highly competitive matches lately, and he shows you he can get the job done if just all of these things click together. And I ended up telling you that he is one of those characters in a promotion like this that I'm going to be very intrigued by his trajectory in 5 months to like a year's time, because
I don't think it'll even take that long, man. A month, maybe 2.
Maybe. Because, and I don't want to be hyperbolic here, and I know I told you the same thing last night. I don't even know if we're talking about a guy that has the potential to be a world champion in this promotion with how people are taking to him.
I think the beautiful part about this promotion is that there are very few people that I can't imagine eventually being a world champion given a proper push.
Right.
Whereas, you look at WWE, and, I mean, as much as I'd love to buy it, I don't think Fandango's ever going to be a champion, a world champion. I don't think, Heath Slater, there are a lot of guys, and even, in TNA, Rockstar Spud's never going to be a champion. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think there are very many guys in this promotion that I can say that about, because even the smallest guys, I think the smallest guy that we've seen so far was probably either a Fenix or Aerostar, and I think both of those guys, given a proper push, could win the championship.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
Maybe
there.
Ricky Mandel.
Yeah, maybe.
But even he showed a little something tonight.
Yeah, he did. And, I just think it's so funny because we used to say about Dolph Ziggler when he was going through his U.S. championship run all that long while ago, that he was losing his way to the bigger prize. And I feel like maybe that's what's happening here with Son of Havoc.
Yep.
Because, just like Ziggler, though, it's a highly competitive match because these guys went out and they killed it, man.
Yes, they did.
I mean, respect to these guys. I mean, everybody knows that I'm a Johnny Mundo mark here, but honestly, I don't want to celebrate him. I've already told people 1,000 times how awesome I think he is. We don't need 1,001. I want to focus on Havoc here because this was, I think, his biggest match to date in the promotion, and he showed up. And not only did he show up, there was a good portion of the crowd. I can't lie about it. There was a great portion of the crowd that wanted him to win this match.
Yep.
And I love it, though. I absolutely love it because I feel like what story are we witnessing here? And, I mean, they went back and forth. Mundo did this great, I can never pronounce it right, Capoeira. How is that fighting?
Capoeira.
I'm going to get it right one day on the first try, I promise you. Capoeira. Kind of splash in the beginning. That was pretty cool.
Break it into 3 words, John. Cap.
Oera.
Cap. Boy. Era.
Capoeira.
There you go. See, yeah, that's always how I think of things. I always break things into
But then you got Havoc does from the outside this standing kind of frozen elbow drop, almost like Elijah Burke's doing ECW, that outer limits elbow, except it was on the outside. So that was pretty cool. Then Mundo went for a springboard, but Ivelisse grabbed the legs, and that only got
Ivelisse played a big part in this match.
She did, and I can't wait to get to that because, this here notes that the crowd was split. I mean, chants for both guys were going at all points. Mundo hit another drop kick, but then they're still going back and forth because he pushed Havoc in the corner and he unloaded. But then Havoc hit a springboard double stomp and then a standing moonsault kind of combo that was beautiful.
Yep.
And then ultimately, This was the craziest part of the match. And again, like, I'm a Mundo mark, but I wasn't even freaking out in a bad way, just in a shocked way, because he's trying to go for Hurricane Rana to Havoc. Havoc held on to the ropes. And I'm like, no freaking way. No freaking way. He's going to do it. And, like, he's looking like he's going to do – I think we've seen him do the shooting star press before. So, you know, that's what he had in mind. But Ivelisse was talking to him, telling him, like, get on him. And you'd have to imagine, of course, Havoc was getting on it. Like, he was probably thinking, oh, my God, you know, I'm going to win. But he was on there for so long, even Justin Gabriel was getting impatient. And finally, when he decided to go for it, Mundo gets the knees up. And then he hits the end of the world for the victory. I love it, dude. I love that they actually made Havoc so legitimate in the context of this one match that Ivelisse screwed it up for him because he would have had it won. Freaking love that, dude, so much. Because what were you saying?
I was just going to say, this match was so much fun to watch. And some of the stunts that Havoc was able to pull off, and here's my thing. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2011 or 2012, when he was on Tough Enough. Did you know about this, that he was on Tough Enough?
Yeah, you have told me, but it's always good to get a refresher.
He was M-Dogg 20, Matt Capiccioni, I think is his name.
Yeah.
He was a smaller guy, and I mean, he's still shorter, like, I think he's like 5'8"-ish, but he was a smaller guy build-wise then, and now he is ripped like frickin' Finn Balor, Adrian Neville levels of freaking shredded. And he's still doing ridiculous, like, a standing moonsault. Like, he was going for, I think he went for a shooting star that he ended up missing on Mundo at the end there. Like, he is ridiculous. And the fact that he's not this, like, big, like, 6'6" guy means that his body is most likely going to be able to kind of put up with that kind of punishment consistently based on the fact that he isn't, 250 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. Like, to me, if you're like with that Donovan Dijak guy that I showed you the other day, he's like 6'7", 265-ish. He's not going to be able to do moonsaults for more than a few years before his body starts basically telling him to frickin' stop. But if you're Son of Havoc, you're maybe like 5'8", 205. I think that he can actually sustain this style for at least a little bit longer than most people would be able to. And the fact that he's so good at it, and it just so impressive to me.
I just want to point out something very quickly before we move on to our next segment. What I love most about this, it shows the evolution of Havoc to me, because when he first started, now granted, he beat Sexy Star in his first matchup, but then after that, like, he got...
But that was more like, he was a pure heel then, and like, people hated him for it, and then Sexy Star got a revenge, and he's been on a losing streak ever since. Sexy Star ends careers!
Yeah, I mean, she beat him, then Mascarita Sagrada, beat him, and just all these people. But he gets better and better every time, and it seems like, you know what, I'm so close to getting everything together. So I love the evolution of Son of Havoc. It's just, oh my God. His story, I think, is becoming more intriguing for me. So I don't know what him and Ivelisse are going to do going forward, but Son of Havoc, you said in like even 2 months' time. I'll give it a little bit more time and stick with 5. But I think he's getting ready for something big.
I mean, how long did it take for the people to start really buying into Pentagon Jr. after he started really killing people? Maybe
I know, right?
Not even a month.
I love how this temple's all about, like, we want blood, and the crowd is just the same way. It's just so perfect. Yeah. But speaking of which, we will get to that. Oh, actually, just very quickly, Cuerno does attack Mundo post-match.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He ended up hitting the Thrill of the Hunt on him, which I love that the Thrill of the Hunt is basically just a fireman's carry Michinoku driver.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that program's going to be a thing, and I am very much looking forward to it.
For sure, yeah. And we were even talking last night about King Cuerno's heritage, about how he's the son of El Fantasma. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. So after that, now we get Ricky Mandel versus Pentagon Jr. I mean, we've been talking about it all these other segments.
it was a murder match. It was I mean, Ricky Mandel did get a little bit of offense. I think he hit like a drop kick or an arm drag or something like that, but really this was all about Pentagon Jr. establishing his dominance and breaking yet another competitor's arm. And I love the way they sold that at the end too.
They did. And you know what? My favorite spot in this match wasn't even the arm submission, which it's growing on me, you know, with the second week it being demonstrated. My favorite part, Pentagon Jr. had Ricky Mandel at one point up in like an inverted, like Death Valley Driver kind of position.
Yeah.
And he threw him into the corner, and then he did like a drop kick with all the momentum behind it to the back of his head.
Yep.
Holy shit, he's killing people. It shouldn't even be legal. Doesn't do a package pile over to your point, just goes straight for the armbar, breaks Ricky Mandel's arm after he gets the submission, and then post-match he says, and by the way, if I've never said it before, I just want to take the time to say, Lucha Underground, thank you so much for subtitles. That is just
oh my God, I know, it's so helpful.
Because, yeah, way to be, like, not heel to your American audience that doesn't speak Spanish. But he says, today, Master, I have found and given you one more sacrifice. Oh, my God, who is it? Because you know what? Now the intrigue's really there. Because you and I thought, well, it's Alberto El Patron. Like, he's using an arm submission. Patron uses an arm submission. Not anymore. So I'm wondering who it is. Oh, man, Lucha Underground with its character depth is ridiculous.
Heck yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Pentagon's sacrifice to his Lord and Master?
I don't have anything to say because I am just looking forward to the day that we actually find out who it is. It's like between this big reveal and the guy that's in the prison, like I am just, you know, waiting with bated breath.
And Angela Fong's dead, and Mill, Fenix, and Catrina, like so many stories that I care about. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
and for what it's worth, I mean, once this was over, the pretty much the entire final segment was really just about AAA. It was Alberto El Patron, and that kind of led to him eventually being attacked by El Texano Jr., who is, in my opinion, probably the best thing going in AAA right now.
Right.
But really, I don't know if I necessarily like this unless it's actually going to lead to something happening in Lucha Underground. But if they just did this to forward the AAA world title, I don't think I like it at all.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. I'm only okay with this contingent on the fact that this does lead to some kind of payoff that will do good things for Lucha Underground. I am intrigued. I will say this, and I even said this to you in conversation last night. I'm intrigued about the prospect of a Lucha Underground and kind of AAA on a bigger scale kind of crossover a little bit. But again, only if it would be mutually beneficial, and I cannot emphasize enough, it would have to benefit Lucha Underground. I mean, the promo he cut here was fine. He talked about how he was with friends tonight and how he could be himself, how he wanted to come here because he wanted to be in a place where the word equality meant something. Yeah. And so, you know, he took – but you know what I like? I have to give him credit here. I have to give them credit here for the kind of discomfort that I had, same as you. I think the best thing they did, he never – mentioned WWE by name, and that's a mistake TNA does all the time, and it annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah, like, dude, Josh Matthews even goes as far as to say, this guy was a former WWE Tag Team Champion. Screw off.
Exactly. Now, I don't know. I don't even think I don't even think commentary kind of talked until the beatdown occurred, and I'll get to that in a second. But I don't even think he kind of screwed the pooch, so thank you there, Stryker. I know we're usually hard on you, but you did right there, because that always makes me uncomfortable. Like, this is your own identity. Don't go bringing other people into it to remind people, oh, yeah, they're a thing. Why am I watching this or whatever? Like, whatever conclusions they might draw.
Right.
So it was great that Alberto took those little pot shots, but without expressly coming out and saying, oh, yeah, WWE, you know, they have racist people there and whatever. You know, that was very smart. Very smart. Definitely. So I have to give him credit for that. And he said, you know, it's time for me to make an impact here. And I think he closed with, like, it's time to party or something. He's just very happy to be in Lucha Underground. And then he gets attacked by Texano, who, according to Ashton here, because he's far more educated.
John, it's Texano.
Texano? Okay, see, I'm getting educated all over the place. Texano, he attacks Alberto from behind, and according to Ashton, because he has his finger on the pulse of these kinds of things, he was the former AAA World Champion before Alberto came along for over 2 years.
Yep.
Didn't you tell me like
735 days? Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So he really beats him down, takes his belt off, and he just whips him and just completely takes him out, which surprises me because the funny thing was when we were talking, I was like, well, I'm sure somebody's going to interrupt and try and cash in on Alberto's limelight. And then I thought we were going to see the cross arm breaker and him get the big pop to send the crowd home happy. But this was different. So I mean, let me ask you, Ashton, because you're saying, like, if this is solely to promote AAA, then you don't like that. If they had a AAA world title match on an episode of Lucha Underground, would that be good enough for you? Because it gives Lucha Underground
I think so, yeah. I think that would be cool. I mean, would I prefer that we keep Lucha Underground's sort of universe as its own universe? Yeah, but I'd be able to deal with it as if they were using the AAA championship to put on a Lucha Underground show. That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, I think I could get into that. I mean, again, I think what would really leave me kind of miffed is, hey guys, can we use your American platform to just bring all the attention back to AAA in Mexico?
That would be frustrating.
Like, yeah, that would be frustrating. So I'm totally with you there. But if they would say at a future taping, hey, tonight Texano is taking on Alberto for the AAA world title here in Lucha Underground, and I don't know, maybe some kind of Temple of Death hardcore match or just something like that. Like, I could get into that. I could forgive that because at least then it's Lucha Underground getting the business.
Yep.
So, with that said, that was our show. Is there anything else you want to say before we go on to our next segment?
No, sir.
All right, our next segment, high spots and low shots. My low shot's going to be Chavo Guerrero.
Nice.
You know what? He tried to get one up on Mil Muertes. First of all, he failed miserably. Again, I call it pulling a Josh Matthews. That's right, Josh. You've been verbed. And now, he finds out, like, he's got to pay a debt next week. And you know what? Mil Muertes may be going through his own struggles lately, but he's still not somebody I'd feel confident meeting in a dark alley. So, Chavo, I don't envy you, brother. You enjoy all of that. Who's your low shot?
My low shot, you know what, dude? I'm going to keep it simple here. My low shot, because, all the hype and us talking about how he's going to be a top babyface soon, he still lost tonight, and it was really his fault, and maybe even partially his girlfriend's fault. Son of Havoc.
Yeah. Oh, man. It sucks, because he really had a great, standout moment, competing so highly in this match.
Yep.
But that close to the victory, and he let it slip from his fingers. If that's not a low shot, I don't know what is.
Yep.
So, that's that. My high spot, you know what, I'm going to keep up in the same vein. I think my high spot is Big Ryck.
Nice.
It's weird because, again, it feels weird not picking anybody who actively competed for both a low shot and a high spot.
Well, guess what, brother? We're going to have both. We're both going to have somebody that didn't compete for our high spot.
Oh, well, that's good at least. That makes me feel a little bit better because, Big Ryck had an amazing segment. I feel like Lucha Underground has just known how to write him and deliver him brilliantly. And again, to give credit to the actual performer, like you said earlier when we were on that segment, you've got to have a guy that's able to carry it on his shoulders and execute it well. And his execution's been spot on. He's coming for vengeance, and I lick my chops for it. Great stuff.
Absolutely. My high spot's Alberto El Patron.
Your high spot?
I can't not pick Alberto El Patron.
Well, yeah. I mean, this really, in retrospect, this whole show I think was carved around him. His arrival.
Yep.
So yeah, completely agree with where you're coming from there. No arguments there, and that pretty much does it. Do you have any concluding remarks you want to make about Lucha Underground?
I'm looking forward to getting back on our regular schedule next week. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you on that. So with that said, guys, this has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. What do you think of Alberto El Patron's debut? What do you think he's going to do? What about the Mil Muertes, Catrina, Fenix triangle? Talk to us. Make sure you take the discussion over to Puitov, an amazing pro wrestling group. Ashton's our new world champion, so congratulations to him. TWitWoW once again holding the gold, as we should. So congratulations to him. 3-time champion now, brother. And yeah, so it's an amazing pro wrestling group. And make sure you join us again for our Monday Night Raw review, where the war for the WrestleMania 31 main event between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns rages on. And you'll get all your best coverage here. So until then, guys, you know what to do. Tune in and peace out.